Hello, good morning, and welcome to our Year 5 podcast to all those listening at Brownmead.
We have a really exciting podcast for you today about the dynamic dynasties.
This is all about ancient China, how it started, and the different rulers that it had.
Year 5 have been learning all about it over the last term in their topic lessons.
First of all, we have started at the beginning, the dynasty.
China was once full of tribes that battled over land and power.
One day the Yellow Emperor came and united the tribes and made them work together.
When he died, he rode to heaven on a golden dragon. After him, each new emperor was chosen for their warrior strength, courage, or wisdom skills.
His grandson, Yoa, became emperor, but there was a huge problem with floods. They keep destroying the crops, homes, and people.
They tried to control the floods, but they failed until you came along. He controlled the floods, led the military into battle, and finally was pronounced as the next king.
He was known as Yu the Great.
After 45 years of rule, he decided to pass the throne to his son. This was the first time this had happened, and it continued to happen afterwards.
Sadly, they had some good kings, but also some really evil kings and selfish kings.
Eventually, they were overthrown by the Shang tribe and their leader Chang Teng.
Ultimately, we are not entirely sure if this is true, as historians haven't found evidence to support that the Zhai dynasty was real.
The Shang dynasty is the first dynasty that we have uncovered evidence of from archaeological digs.
We know about the Shang dynasty due to a site that was found at Yingzhou. They found oracle bones, tombs, bronze artifacts, skeletons, and much more.
We learned quite a lot about the use of oracle bones from this. There were animal bones that the king or religious leaders would write questions on.
They believed their ancestors and their gods would tell them information about their future through the oracle bones, even if they would win battles.
They wanted to keep the ancestors and gods happy, so they gave them offerings like food, wine, freshly killed animals, and humans.
The Shang dynasty was the epic center of the Bronze Age in China. They discovered they would mine copper and tin, melt it down into a hot liquid, and pour it into clay molds.
They made ritual objects and weapons with the bronze. Some craftspeople were very skilled and could make very detailed objects.
Bronze really helped them in war, as their armor and weapons were sharper, stronger, and lighter than their enemies.
Their armies were really successful and were made up of foot soldiers, archers, specially trained in schools, and chariots.
Fu Hao was the wife of the king, and she was an amazing military leader, which is unique as females weren't normally in charge of armies.
She commanded over 13,000 men and won lots of battles.
China seems quite an impressive place to live during this time, but only if you were lucky enough to be born into the right class.
China had a strict hierarchy system. King, aristocrats, military, craftspeople, peasants, and slaves. Whatever class your parents are, you would be for the rest of your life.
There was quite a difference between rich and poor. The rich lived in big houses, relaxed a lot of the time, wore silk clothing, and had lots of entertainment. The poor lived in one-room homes, worked all day, wore animal skin for clothes that, and were only allowed time for special events.
Not all good things last forever though. The last king, Dijin, was an evil and selfish man. He was drunk all the time, raised taxes, and he was greedy and tortured people until they died.
Lots of people turned against him, and eventually the leader of the Zhao tribe defeated him and took over.
The Zhou dynasty ruled in ancient China for the longest amount of time, around 790 years. Wu Wang defeated the Shang clan after his father died and created the Zhou dynasty in 1046 BC.
Lord controlled different parts of China and listened to Wu Wang for land and power. The Lord also had to give him men to fight in his army.
However, around 771 BC, the Lord started fighting between each other and stopped listening to the king. The king was later assassinated. China was then split up into 3 realms.
In 256 BC, the kingdom of Qin conquered China and brought an end to the Zhou dynasty.
During this time, the rich boys went to school to study maths, writing, archery and rituals. The poor boys had to work all day but could sometimes attend schools. The girls were not allowed to learn anything other than how to look after a home.
The Zhou dynasty continued to use and develop the use of bronze until they discovered how to make iron in 600 BC.
One of the main ideas that started to be presented during this time was Confucianism.
Confucius was a philosopher. He believed people should have virtue and good character. He believed this would lead to people having happy and peaceful lives.
He had 5 main ideas that people should follow, led their life with these ideas in mind.
The first one is the golden rule. Do not do to others what you would not want others to do to you.
Your family looked after them and care for them and love them.
Next was Ren. This was humanity, treating people with love and respect. He believed everyone was capable of having this, but can sometimes be swayed by evil.
Li is next main idea. This conducting yourself properly, such as making sacrifices, respecting the powers above and following the rules.
Next is to take the middle ground. You should not go too extreme with anything and compromise with people.
Finally was Zenming. This is using the correct names for people and treating them the correct way. He believed you had a responsibility for someone else.
King is responsible for their subjects. Parent is responsible for their child. Husband is responsible for their wife, etc.
All people lived in China using Confucianism during this time.
After the fall of the Zhao dynasty, Zhao Zhang united the 7 states and made China one country that was united and ruled by one person.
It only lasted for 14 years before they were conquered, but the changes Emperor Qin made would last the next 2,000 years.
He created the dragon into the royal symbol and decorated his clothes, his palaces and his armies with the dragon symbol.
He created one proper language of Chinese and made sure everyone learnt the same language.
He began creating the Great Wall of China to defend themselves against the Mongolians, but to also keep people from leaving China. This momentum is still standing today.
He ordered craftsmen to make him an 8,000 soldier army made of clay to be buried with him to go to the afterlife. It took over 70,000 men to do this.
Whilst these changes were good, he was a cruel and harsh leader. If anyone disobeyed him, they would be punished severely. He ordered books about Confucianism to be burnt.
The final dynasty was the Han Dynasty. They wanted to find a better way to rule that was more fair to the people than the Qin Dynasty.
They created a civil service. You could put yourself forward to become part of the government work and work your way up to become one of the most powerful officials over the years. You were given an intelligence and honesty test if you're unsure that they were getting people who were the best of the best and not corrupt and evil.
This got rid of the traditional hierarchy system where you'd stay in your class that you were born in and could never improve your life. People really liked this in China.
The system stayed for the next 2,000 years and is still used today in China.
The Han Dynasty were also famous for introducing the Silk Road. They originally sent people to make aliens with other countries to help them against the North invaders. However, people found that they could trade items for other items. China would trade silk, jade and bronze in return for horses, weapons, food.
Towns and villages were built along the Silk Road as the journey was too long to travel, so people had to stop on the way.
This route went from eastern China to the Mediterranean Sea. This really opened up China to the rest of the world for the first time and the rest of history.
Eventually, they started using boats and sailed across sea instead as the Ottoman Empire closed the road. Ultimately, ancient China has a fascinating tale of discovery, history and legacy. We have really enjoyed learning about this and we hope that you've enjoyed listening.